Awakening the dragons. The red dwarf star cast an eternal crimson twilight across Nova Solaris colony. Lieutenant Commander Elara Frost stood at the observation deck, her enhanced eyes scanning the rusty horizon, where artificial habitats merged seamlessly with the partially terraformed landscape. 6 years on this harsh world had transformed what began as a mining outpost into humanity's furthest reach into the Orion Spur. Nova Solaris appeared vulnerable, a small collection of domes and underground complexes housing just under 10,000 colonists. The casual observer would see nothing remarkable about this outpost. That was precisely the point. "Commander Frost, you need to see this." The voice belonged to Dr. Yuki Nakamura, Nova's sensor specialist. Her expression betrayed none of the alarm her words carried. Elara moved to the central command hub where holographic displays showed an approaching fleet. 17 vessels in tight formation. Their energy signatures matched nothing in human databases. "Vraxians," Elara said, recognizing the distinctive hexagonal hull design from intelligence briefings, far from their usual hunting grounds. "They've deployed scanning probes. Targeting systems active." Yuki's augmented eyes flicked between screens. "No attempts at communication." Elara nodded slowly. "They think we're defenseless." Standard colonial intimidation approach. A thin smile crossed her face. "Initiate protocol, Sleeping Dragon." Throughout the colony, systems hidden within ordinary infrastructure began to awaken. What appeared to be standard water reclamation units pulsed with quantum calculations. Atmospheric regulators shifted priorities. Beneath the surface, fabrication centers that had seemingly produced ordinary mining equipment activated sealed chambers. "They've launched the first wave," reported Security Chief Garen West, his prosthetic hand dancing across a tactical display. "Impact in 45 seconds. Elara remained perfectly still. "Let them hit." The first barrage struck Nova Solaris with devastating force. Habitat Dome 3 shattered in a spectacular display of destruction. Supply warehouses erupted into flames. Communication arrays collapsed. On the Vraxian command ship, Fleet Commander Trazak watched with satisfaction. "Pathetic. Their defenses are weaker than anticipated." His tactical officer, Vrel, nodded in agreement. "The settlement is falling exactly as predicted. No significant resistance detected." Trazak sneered. "Prepare the landing force. Their resources will serve the Vraxian Dominion well." Back on Nova Solaris, beneath the apparent destruction, something extraordinary was happening. What the Vraxians saw as devastating damage was actually a carefully choreographed performance. "Structural integrity holding at 97%, reported Darren. "Adaptive camouflage systems functioning perfectly." Inside what appeared to be a shattered dome, colonists continued their work. The destruction visible from orbit was an elaborate projection. Advanced holographic systems combined with sacrificial outer structures designed to absorb damage while protecting the actual colony. "Phase 1 complete," Yuki announced. "They believe they've crippled our primary systems." Elara nodded. "They've committed to the attack pattern." "Activate AEGS." Throughout Nova Solaris, dormant systems surged to life. What looked like simple mining equipment transformed, revealing weapons platforms that had been hiding in plain sight. Atmospheric processors began producing specialized nanites programmed for hardware disruption. Even the colonists themselves underwent subtle changes, neural implants shifting to combat configurations, releasing performance enhancers into their bloodstreams. When the second wave of Vraxian weapons struck, the results were dramatically different. Missiles that should have completed the colony's destruction disappeared into defensive fields that adapted in real time to each attack vector. On the Vraxian command ship, confusion reigned. "Impossible." Trazak snarled. "The human settlement should be destroyed." "Sir, our sensors are detecting changes in the colony's structure," Vrel reported, voice tight with concern. "Energy signatures unlike anything in our database." The truth was far more alarming than the Vraxians could comprehend. Nova Solaris wasn't just a mining colony. It was a testbed for humanity's most advanced defensive systems, deliberately placed at the edge of explored space as bait for would-be aggressors. Beneath the colony, Director Samira Khalid monitored the AEGI's protocol's deployment from the True Command Center. Integration at 63% and climbing, she reported. Neural network fully operational. The neural network wasn't merely digital. It was a hybrid system that linked the colony's AI with the augmented neural patterns of every colonist. Each person became a node in a vast, distributed intelligence, conscious participants in a unified defense organism. Ilara felt the connection strengthen as her neural implants synchronized with the collective. Information flowed through her consciousness. Damage reports, tactical analyses, offensive capabilities. The boundary between individual and colony blurred. They're launching a third wave, she announced, information arriving directly through the neural link rather than from sensors. Different approach vector. They're adaptive, Darren noted, but not adaptive enough. The third Vraxian assault crashed against defenses that had anticipated every vector. What appeared to be simple construction equipment rose from the colony's surface, revealing advanced weapon systems that had been disguised as infrastructure. Mining lasers reconfigured into defense batteries. Terraforming machines transformed into drone launchers. On the Vraxian flagship, true alarm had set in. "Sir, the humans are deploying." "Something," reported a sensor operator. "Our scanning systems can't identify the technology." Trazek leaned forward. "Are they calling for reinforcements?" "No detectable communications beyond the colony," Vrel replied. "Whatever they're doing it alone." The truth was far more terrifying. Nova Solaris wasn't calling for help. It was becoming something else entirely. Dr. Maya Chen, the colony's chief biotechnologist, monitored transformation metrics from her laboratory. Genetic adaptations proceeding at optimal levels, she reported through the neural link. Colonists in combat roles showing 200% enhancement in reaction time. The Vraxians had expected a simple colonial suppression mission. Identify target, destroy defenses, land troops, extract resources. A standard operation they'd performed dozens of times against less advanced civilizations. What they'd actually done was trigger humanity's most closely guarded secret. "They're powering weapons for a fourth attack wave," Yuki announced. "But something's different. They're targeting specific points in our defensive grid." Ilara nodded. "They're learning." "Good." Her voice contained no fear, only anticipation. "Activate secondary systems." Across Nova Solaris, a second layer of transformation began. Colonists who appeared to be ordinary miners and engineers revealed military augmentations that had remained dormant until needed. Defensive positions that seemed fixed began to move, the entire colony's architecture shifting like a living organism. On the Vraxian command ship, true fear had taken hold. "Sir," said Vrel, voice shaking, "we're detecting massive energy surges throughout the colony. They're transforming." Trazek stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. What manner of deception is this? No colony possesses such capabilities. In that moment of dawning comprehension, the Vraxian commander realized his catastrophic error. This wasn't just a colony, it was a trap, and his fleet had walked straight into it. Back on Nova Solaris, Ilara Frost sensed the shift in the Vraxian fleet's posture through the neural network. "They're preparing to retreat," she announced. "They think they can just walk away." Director Khalid's voice echoed through the neural link. "The Dragon Protocol is at 85% activation. We need 97% for full deployment." Ilara's eyes narrowed. "They attacked a human colony without provocation. They don't get to just leave." Throughout Nova Solaris, systems that had been purely defensive began to reconfigure once more. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about sending a message to the galaxy. "Dragon Protocol at 92%, reported Maya. "Final transformations initiating." In orbit, the Vraxian fleet began emergency maneuvers to retreat. Too late, They realized that what they had awakened wasn't just a well-defended colony. It was something far more terrifying, the next evolution of human warfare. "They're powering their jump drives," Darren reported, attempting emergency withdrawal. Ilara's expression hardened. "Not yet. They need to see what happens when you attack humanity." Across the colony, the final stage of transformation began. What had appeared to be a devastated settlement now revealed its true nature, a fully integrated defense platform that had merely been disguised as a colony. The dragons were awake, and they were hungry. Part 2. Counterattack. The Vraxian fleet's engines burned white-hot as they attempted emergency withdrawal. From a civilization that had built its reputation on military dominance, this was an unprecedented retreat. 17 warships fleeing from what they had believed was a simple mining colony. "Jump drives at 74% charge," reported Vrel, his voice tight with strain. "We need another 2 minutes." Fleet Commander Trazek stood rigid at the command console. "Maintain full power to defensive systems, whatever these humans have become." The tactical display erupted with warnings. Throughout Nova Solaris, what had appeared to be scattered ruins transformed. Buildings restructured themselves, becoming launch platforms. The ground itself seemed to ripple as hidden facilities emerged. "Sir," Vrel's voice cracked. Multiple launches detected from the colony's surface. On Nova Solaris, Lieutenant Commander Ilara Frost stood within the colony's true command center. Her consciousness merged with the collective neural network. Through this connection, she experienced the launch of the colony's offensive capabilities, not as distant events, but as extensions of her own will. "Dragon Protocol at 97%, Director Khalid announced. Full activation achieved. The colony no longer resembled anything the Vraxians would recognize as a settlement. Nova Solaris had become a unified combat entity, part machine, part biological, entirely lethal. The outer shell of destruction had been shed, revealing the gleaming technological marvel beneath. "First wave deploying," Ilara announced, feeling the deployment through the neural link. Targeting their primary weapon systems. What launched from Nova Solaris defied conventional classification. Not missiles or drones, but adaptive combat units that reconfigured their approach as they tracked toward the Vraxian fleet. Each unit contained a fragment of the colony's distributed intelligence, allowing it to learn and adapt independently while remaining connected to the collective. On the Vraxian flagship, panic spread through the command deck. Unknown projectiles approaching. Countermeasures ineffective. The tactical officer's voice rose with each report. They're changing course to avoid defensive fire. Trazek watched in horror as the first wave of human weapons impacted his fleet. Instead of explosive detonations, the devices attached themselves to Vraxian hulls and began to transform, spreading across the ship's surfaces like liquid metal coming alive. "What is this technology?" he demanded, but no one had answers. Within Nova Solaris, Dr. Maya Chen monitored the assault through the neural network. Assimilation units performing at 96% efficiency, host systems being integrated. The assimilation units were one of humanity's most closely guarded technological achievements, adaptive machines containing specialized nanites that could interface with and override alien technology. As they spread across the Vraxian ships, they began converting enemy systems into extensions of Nova Solaris itself. Ilara sensed the expanding network as the Vraxian ships became unwilling participants in the human defense grid. 3 vessels successfully integrated, redirecting their weapon systems. The horror of the Vraxian crews became complete as they lost control of their own ships. Weapon systems that had been pointed at Nova Solaris turned against their own fleet. On the command ship, Trazek watched as 3 of his vessels opened fire on his flagship. Cut them off from the command network. Override their systems. "We can't, sir." Vrel's voice cracked with desperation. "Something is rewriting our command protocols faster than our security systems can respond." Back on Nova Solaris, Chief Engineer Raj Patel monitored the technological integration. "We've established bridgeheads in their network architecture. Their encryption is advanced but predictable. That was humanity's true advantage. While other species developed technology as separate systems, humans had long since blurred the lines between biological and technological evolution. Nova Solaris wasn't just using technology. It had partially become technology, a hybrid entity capable of comprehending and adapting to alien systems at unprecedented speed. Secondary Dragon assets deploying, Ilara announced. Throughout the colony, specialized facilities activated. What had appeared to be ordinary medical centers revealed their true purpose: biological engineering platforms that had been refining the colonists' capabilities since their arrival. The Dragons weren't just technological, they were evolutionary. Specialized combat teams activated implants that had remained dormant until needed. Colonists who had lived as miners and engineers underwent rapid transformations, their bodies adapting to space combat with pre-programmed genetic modifications. Boarding teams ready, reported Security Chief Darren West. Enhancement protocols complete. Ilara nodded. Launch when ready. Specialized transport vessels emerged from hidden hangars, racing toward the disorganized Vraxian fleet. These weren't conventional assault craft, but adaptive platforms that could attach to any vessel regardless of design, creating breaching points through controlled molecular disassembly. Inside these transports, Nova Solaris colonists prepared for combat. Their enhanced physiologies, stronger bones, reinforced cardiovascular systems, neural acceleration implants, had been designed specifically for this moment. What appeared to be standard equipment transformed into specialized combat gear as adaptive nanotechnology reconfigured to the mission parameters. On the Vraxian flagship, warning systems blared. Boarding craft detected. They're attaching to multiple decks. The security officer's report was interrupted as the ship's internal systems began to fail. Internal defenses offline. Communications compromised. Trazek felt true fear for the first time in his military career. What manner of demons have we awakened? The boarding action was unlike anything in Vraxian military doctrine. The humans didn't simply fight their way through the ships. They integrated with them. Specialized teams interfaced directly with Vraxian systems, their neural implants translating alien code in real time. Others deployed adaptive countermeasures that rendered Vraxian weapons ineffective. Through the neural network, Ilara experienced fragments of the boarding actions. Quick, efficient operations that prioritized system control over conventional combat. Flagship control systems partially secured, reported Darren through the link. Propulsion and weapons neutralized. Director Khaled's voice carried through the network. Commence final phase. Deliver the message. Throughout the Vraxian fleet, the captured systems displayed the same message, translated perfectly into their language. You attacked what you thought was a vulnerable human colony. You discovered we are something else entirely. Remember this day. Tell others what happens when humanity is provoked. We are not just another species to be conquered. We are the dragons you should have left sleeping. On the command ship's bridge, Fleet Commander Trazek found himself facing Lieutenant Commander Ilara Frost, not in person, but through every display and communication system on the ship. Your fleet is disabled, she said, her voice unnaturally calm. Your weapons are under our control. This could have ended with your complete destruction, but we choose a different path today. Trazek stared at the human's image. What are you? We are humanity's future, Ilara replied. Nova Solaris is a prototype, a test of what all our colonies will become. You weren't attacking the settlement. You were attacking an evolutionary step. Through the neural link, Ilara felt Director Khaled's approval of her approach. The message needed to spread throughout the galaxy. Attacking human colonies wasn't just tactically ill-advised, it was existentially dangerous. You will be permitted to return to your civilization with one operational vessel, Ilara continued. The rest remain with us for study. Your crew will be returned unharmed. You expect gratitude. Trazek's voice trembled with a mixture of fear and rage. No, Ilara replied. We expect you to warn others. Humanity doesn't seek conflict, but we have prepared for it beyond anything you can imagine. Today was not a victory for us. It was a demonstration. Within hours, the Vraxian survivors were consolidated onto their least damaged vessel. Its weapons and advanced technology had been removed, leaving only basic life support and propulsion. As they departed, they carried with them comprehensive recordings of what had transpired, evidence of what happens when humanity's adaptive potential is unleashed. Back on Nova Solaris, the colony began its return to apparent normalcy. Advanced systems receded into hidden compartments. Combat-enhanced colonists returned to their civilian roles. The settlement once again appeared vulnerable and unremarkable. In the command center, Ilara stood with Director Khalid, watching the departure of the Vraxian vessel. "Do you think they'll heed the warning?" Ilara asked. Khalid smiled thinly. "The Vraxians will. Others might not. That's why we're here, at the edge of explored space, appearing vulnerable." "Bait," Ilara said. "Teachers," Khalid corrected. "The galaxy needs to understand that humanity isn't just another spacefaring species. We're something the universe hasn't seen before, a civilization that doesn't just use technology, but becomes it when necessary." Outside, the red dwarf star cast its eternal twilight across Nova Solaris colony. To any observer, it would again appear to be nothing more than a struggling outpost on a harsh world, just another human settlement trying to survive against the odds. That was precisely the point. The dragons had returned to sleep, but they would awaken again if needed.